We've had some news from Manchester United, and that is that Ruud Van Nistelrooy will not remain at the club now that Ruben Amorim has come in. Him and three other members of the coaching staff have been thanked for their time, but moved on. Rory, just firstly, do you feel like that is the right move from Ruben Amorim and Manchester United?
Yes, I don't think that Ruben Amorim should feel compelled to appoint somebody who is a club legend, and equally would cast a bit of a shadow over Amorim. You know, if it wasn't going well, if Ruud Van Nistelrooy was there lurking, unbeaten manager, icon at the club, legend at the club, lurking like the Grim Reaper in the background, it wouldn't do the club any favours.
I think you're right, and I think as a player as well, it would just feel like a reminder of that difficult time with Ten Hag, as much as, Van Nistelrooy, I think you could see it on the touchline, couldn't you, that he would sit and basically argue with Erik Ten Hag for an entire game.
But you know where he's been a little bit unlucky here, Van Nistelrooy. I think Manchester United are just scorned by what happened with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. If that hadn't have happened, if they didn't give the interim manager the job and it goes so wrong at the end, I feel like he may have actually been in with a chance of getting the job.
But do you feel like that would have been the right decision? Actually, given that what we saw with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer.
Being totally frank, I don't know. But what I do think is true. You know, when there's one example of it either going wrong or right, I don't think that is therefore a cast iron template to use for the rest of our lives. Like, when people say, oh, well, it didn't go well with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer as an interim, that doesn't mean that you never, ever employ an interim again. Equally, when Arsenal plucked Mikel Arteta off the bench at Man City, gave him his first Premier League job at a club the size of Arsenal, it doesn't mean that works every time. Like, people shouldn't be using anything as a template simply because it works once or it doesn't work once. But for Ruud Van Nistelrooy, he did his job, unbeaten, got a win in Europe, which was fairly elusive for them, and he will have his own ambitions. So I think it's probably right. Manchester, it feels weird that we're saying this because we're talking about Manchester United at boardroom level making correct decisions time and time again in the last week.
Yeah, it feels a bit strange.
It's a new dawn. I don't know what I'm talking about.
I know. But it's funny you mentioned about Van Nistelrooy and his own ambitions as well, because you're right. He was a manager before at PSV. They finished second, I think, that season in 22-23, and then comes in as assistant to try and help out Manchester United. But I think it felt a bit like he wanted to get back into being the manager. Where do you think his level is?
I think his stock's high. I think his stock is high. His stock will be very high. If you have an unbeaten run, regardless of how small that run is, at a club as turbulent as Manchester United, I think it looks very good for your managerial abilities. He's also managed in the Eredivisie. So there will be a lot of clubs thinking about giving Ruud Van Nistelrooy...
Which clubs?
What level of clubs you mean?
What level of clubs?
I think certainly Premier League.
Really? Premier League?
I think there are Premier League clubs that would certainly consider. Not only because also, Ollie, not only is Ruud Van Nistelrooy, from what we can tell, an adept manager, but he's an icon.
He's an icon, I understand.
Which carries you a lot.
I understand Frank Lampard's an icon.
Yeah,
and things have gone wrong with him at some places. Steven Gerrard's an icon.
Yeah, we're talking about getting the opportunities, though. Both all the managers that you just mentioned all got opportunities that perhaps their managerial abilities, the opportunity came earlier than it should have done.
Out of interest then, do you not think that clubs will look at those iconic names who have tried to take over in Premier League situations, not Wayne Rooney to be fair, do you not think they'll have looked at that and gone, is that the right route to go down? Someone with a I'm not saying that those names, by the way, couldn't go on to be good managers, but it's almost that lack of experience, I think, that would worry Premier League teams if they were looking for a new manager.
No, because it's simply not working somewhere else. This is kind of tapping into what we just said. Having an example of something working or not working previously doesn't mean that it will or won't work. Like, I think you can take a punt on a manager like Ruud Van Nistelrooy, who has proven to be adept at managing a club the stature of Manchester United, that were, let's face it...
Yeah, only for a few games.
Frankly, in turmoil when he took over.
Yeah, only for a few games.
He steadied the ship.
Yeah, he did steady the ship, but he knew someone else was coming in as well.
Yeah. In terms of thinking about giving him a job...
It's not a huge sample size, though, is it?
No,
let's be honest.
No, it's not. But I think that he has conducted himself very well. He has the stature of a manager. He was an intelligent footballer. He's managed a club the size of PSV already. I think that there will be a lot of quite exciting Premier League clubs.
What clubs are you talking about? When you say that, when you say lots of Premier League clubs, what level? Who are you talking about?
I'll give you an example where I think it could fit.
Go on.
Because not only would the club, I think, appeal to Van Nistelrooy in terms of the size and the opportunity, like big enough to be interesting, but small enough to experiment and give him an opportunity. His personality, I think, would chime with the support in a way that their current manager doesn't. So Ruud Van Nistelrooy, an attacker, an elite attacker.
Who are we talking about here?
I'm talking about West Ham United.
West Ham.
If you think about what West Ham fans want from football, think about what they want, and I think that these things really
West
do
Ham,
matter.
At the moment, though, that is an enormous job to take over. Given we're talking about Lopetegui's under a bit of pressure, and I think you're right to point out West Ham because it seems already as if his days are numbered. You're right, I think, to point out the style of play and that being an important factor, but. That is a huge job for someone who is an icon of the game. Completely agree with you. Brilliant player. But for me, you look at that CV and is there enough on it to take on a job that the size of West Ham at the moment and gelling a load of new signings and teaching all those players a different style of play and moving them, let's be honest, out of a bit of a relegation scrap. They're low down in the table.
But this is the problem. When you talk about the CV, so maybe his CV is a little bare. But the CV of Lopetegui is huge, and he's definitely not the right man.
That's a good point.
So it doesn't. One of Chelsea's most. We appointed a World Cup winner. We appointed Scolari, and it was one of the worst managerial appointments that you've ever seen. It was over before it begun, and that's partly because of the CV. He got the job.
Okay, if Enzo Maresca left, then would you be interested in Chelsea appointing Ruud Van Nistelrooy as a manager?
Yeah, I think I don't see why not.
Really
I mean,
would.
Look, if you think about the opportunity that we gave Maresca, I'm very happy with Maresca for the record. But the opportunity that we gave him, I was slightly underwhelmed. Thought a manager that's never managed in the Premier League getting an opportunity at Chelsea, that's early. In terms of qualification, Ruud Van Nistelrooy is more qualified to take a job like Chelsea than Enzo Maresca was, and it's working for Maresca. You looked at me like that was wrong. Do you disagree?
I don't disagree. I mean, when you actually think about, even the short time that Van Nistelrooy's been in charge, he's been in a title race with Arne Slot before. Now Enzo Maresca finds himself doing the same thing. For me, though, I just sometimes look at some of those appointments when it's been an ex-player and they've got limited managerial experience. Very good. I knew that was coming. Yeah. But I look sometimes. To be fair, it's a good example, and it doesn't go well.
There are examples of it not going well, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't go well forever. You've been on a bad date, but you're going to have more, aren't you? You don't just go, "Well, I had a bad date."
You say that.
No, but I don't think that former players, icons of the game, getting opportunities. Steven Gerrard at Villa proving that maybe doesn't work. Doesn't prove that it doesn't work for eternity.
Do you know the point you made that was interesting is when, because I was trying to say there that actually, you've got to look at the CV of a manager, etc. But actually, some of the managers where it just has not been the right fit, and they can be someone who's managed Real Madrid.
Is a perfect example of a poor fit for a club. Whereas I think Van Nistelrooy's approach, I don't know enough about his managerial style, to be totally frank, but I've seen his Manchester United team score bundles of goals since he's gone into the job. In fact, when his first game, didn't they score 4 goals in a half? They've scored in bundles of goals, which will chime with West Ham fans. Him as a player, the way that he played the game, will, I think, inspire West Ham fans.
So out of interest, in terms of the managers that are out of work at the moment, because you're adding him to this list of managers that Premier League clubs would be interested in, where's he fit in terms, I'd say that Graham Potter is someone that clubs would be interested in. We've actually heard today, it's in Alex Crick's notebook on talksport.com that there are 4 clubs interested in David Moyes and his services. Where does Van Nistelrooy go in that list, do you think?
Ahead of the two that you certainly the two that
he
you
goes
just
ahead
said.
of Potter and Moyes.
In my opinion, yes, 100% ahead of Moyes. I'm not suggesting that Moyes wasn't once a good manager, but I really just find him so underwhelming now. Whatever club he went into would the support would just feel so underwhelming.
And is that because of the style of play?
It's partly the style of play. I mean, it's the personality. I don't like to make it personal, but Ruud Van Nistelrooy is young. It's a noble appointment. It's progressive. It's exciting. Who knows what the future holds? We know what the future holds with David Moyes, right?
I know you know what. I think that's a bit unfair on Moyes as well, given what he actually achieved at West Ham in particular, and the vast experience he's got. The other thing is, this is where it gets a quite interesting debate, is as much as Ruud Van Nistelrooy would be a really progressive and exciting appointment, as you say, and he's young and everything like that, when he's taken over, yes, Man United are in a bit of a crisis, but as I said, he was there for 3 games. He's also taken over, at PSV as well. But a Premier League club in a relegation fight, which, let's be honest, it probably would be, that is a huge job to take.
Okay,
And I just think there is
a bit of jeopardy.
There's jeopardy. And I just think Premier League owners might look at it and go, that's where you need experience over a young and progressive manager.
I can't empathise with an owner, but I can empathise with a fan. What would you rather? Would you rather the tried, stale and tested David Moyes or the young, unknown that is Ruud Van Nistelrooy?
Do you know, it'd be interesting to ask a Leicester fan this, because I think at the moment, despite where they kind of are in the league, and I would say they haven't made the best start ever, they've made the best start out of the teams that have come up, though. Some of them are frustrated with Steve Cooper.
Mate,
and it would be interesting to know, would you rather take...
This building is swarming with West Ham fans. I'd love to get that, because that feels like... Leicester, I don't think, would whet the appetite of Ruud Van Nistelrooy, immediately going into a relegation fight. Whereas with West Ham, I mean, they were in the Europa League fairly recently, and they got a long way in it, and they have won European silverware, apparently. So I think that one could actually be appealing both ways. Whereas I don't think Leicester immediate relegation fight is going to be particularly appealing.
Because it might damage. You know, if it doesn't go well, that could be bad for
Mourinho 05 could take that team down. You know, like
that's true. Yeah. By the way, he was the first footballer to make me cry, Van Nistelrooy.
Did he do something?
Just as a fan. No, don't worry. No.
What happened?
No, what happened was the 2005 FA Cup semi-final, Newcastle against Man United.
You got beaten in a semi-final of the FA Cup and you cried, mate. You got to get used to that.
I know, it's bad, isn't it? No, mate.
I remember
we have not been used to FA Cup semi-finals.
Gustavo Poyet should have had you in tears. I remember Gustavo Poyet should have had you in tears at Wembley Stadium.
Who was the first player that had you in tears?
Les Ferdinand for Newcastle. Amazing.
Get in, Les.
Les Ferdinand for Newcastle. You scored a last minute. You scored Les Ferdinand. Terrible kick out from Dimitri Karine. Philippe Albert sets up Ferdinand to equalise in the last minute. We went up to St James's Park. We knocked you out on penalties. Eddie Newton.
Oh, get in. I love that Celeste made you cry, though. That's amazing.